My name is Daniel Fishkin, and I went to Bard in 2004 and I graduated in 2009. I'm now in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm in the middle of my PhD studying computer music and music composition. And I'm going to talk to you now about Richard Teitelbaum.
Hey, my name is Dani Dobkin. I was at Bard from 2010 to 2014, where I studied electronic composition with Richard. And I'm currently in New York as a doctoral candidate in music composition at Columbia University.
Hi, my name is Sergei Tcherepnin, and I went to Bard from 1999 to 2003, where I took many colorful classes with Richard. I'm in Brooklyn right now, where I'm making music mostly.
Hi, my name is Leila Bordreuil. I am a cellist, a composer, and sound artist. I went to Bard from 2008 to 2012, where I studied with Richard a lot. And I'm here to talk to you about Richard Teitelbaum. When Richard died, I tried to find some pictures. Obviously, the only two pictures I found were just me and him in this really ridiculous, like, silver costume on the beach in Florida. And then this other picture that was just like us in front of some weird spaceship, like waving in a weird way. And that's the only pictures I have. They're really, really goofy. And so was Richard. He was a very goofy guy for sure. The pictures are from a residency that I did in Florida at the Atlantic Center for the Arts, where he was a master artist in residence. And yeah, we like went to the beach every day. Yeah, it was really great, and it was my first residency ever. I was like 21 years old at the time, and I think looking back on it, the fact that Richard invited me to go to Florida had like a really big impact on like the rest of my life as an artist. Because then I was like, oh, I can do this if I work for it, and
After I graduated, I ended up going to stay at his house for a few months and finishing my orchestra piece and trying to look for bears outside his window and occasionally helping him organize like old recordings and things like that and talking about Henry Cowell. But yeah, somehow it's interesting that that you say that he sort of like made that impact on your sort of like trajectory, I guess, because similarly, I didn't really think about it until when I was thinking about this now. Is like, oh yeah, Richard's the reason I went to Bard when I was 17.
I went to Bard. I thought I wanted to be a writer, and then I signed up for this class that he teaches called John Cage in His World. And I was so excited for this because I was a total Cage freak in high school. And I didn't know you could go to college and like take a whole class on John Cage. And it was like a third year class, but I'd kind of talked my way in, and I made a big deal out of impressing Richard. Like, no, you got to let me in this class. I'm obsessed with silence. I read it at my high school coffee shop, He had this very funny way of being serious and light at the same time. Like, I don't think he really cared at all whether students did their homework, because I don't think he liked telling people what to do. But if you said something that he thought was incorrect about John Cage, or if you did a piece that was somehow like a perversion of Cage's ideas, he would give you such a hard time. And we went to like Maverick Concert Hall and performed 433 in the same place where Tudor premiered it. And, that was like really special.
I went in thinking I'd be like poli-sci or something. And I remember like sitting in the classroom and I was like, what's that? And I pointed to the surge, and Miguel was like, that's the surge. Like, you should see Richard Teitelbaum play it. And I was like, whoa, he's a real wizard on that machine. And that kind of like opened up this whole world of like, because I had no idea what like electronic or experimental music was like when I entered Bard. Like, yeah, I listened to like indie music, I listened to rock music, but it kind of like opened the door to like the great beyond of, you know, what else is out there.
But it's true, like Daniel, you said about how he didn't like to tell people what to do, and I feel like that's like so true. Like everything was so understated in a way. But that sort of understatedness, I feel like I also really value on a human level, but also as a student and now as a teacher, letting the students do what they want to do in a way, but to, always kind of demand this respect, maybe demand's the wrong word, but have the utmost respect for the avant-garde. And I feel like that's because it's a different time now.
Richard didn't teach to everyone. He taught to those who like were really interested in the avant-garde.
Well, it's just amazing though to think too that we were, I was taking, like world music with this pioneer who was in Musica Electronica Viva.
Yeah.
And you never talked about it, but I would listen to those recordings and just be so just like blown away in a way at the time. I wouldn't really talk about it with him, but I was just like, wow, he's like, why doesn't he talk about all of this?
Why doesn't he talk? Why didn't he talk about his music? It was a real mystery.
He never talked about it.
And also, the only time he really talked about it with me was when I was taking a Jewish mysticism class at Bard, and I was writing my final paper on Sabbatai Tzvi, False Messiah.
Yeah.
And he had done an opera on Sabbatai Tzvi, so we would just like talk for hours. I gave him my paper, and we talked all about it.
I didn't hear his piece Blends until I listened to that the day that he died, and I heard Blends, this amazing Shakuhachi album with electronics, and then I hear this howling of like a wolf, and it made me remember, like, I did a recording with him, and it was some stupid little text score that I wrote back in 2005, and there's a wolves section, and Richard is playing piano, and he just starts howling. But he's never going to say, like, if you want to hear me howling, listen to Blends. It was like a secret, like a 15-year secret, like that I would find this later. And I mean, I find that really, I wished he would talk more about that stuff. But it's also a special little secret for the future.
He was kind of a bit of this legendary mystery in some way. Other students would be like, Richard is a legend in the history of electronic music, but you didn't really know like what made that the case, because he really, didn't talk about it.
Right.
Didn't have that air, and it was interesting too when he died, and then there were all these articles about them in the French newspaper as well. They were just painting this like really grandiose portrait as him being like a pillar in the evolution of electronic music, which was interesting to me because he was just so humble in a way that like those are just things I wouldn't think about when I thought about him, because there's he didn't need that to be relevant or be he didn't need to let you know that he's a part of history to be your friend.
Yeah.
At some point, I became conscious of the fact that he also would improvise on piano, or he just started playing the piano and improvising. I was like, oh yeah, I improvise on piano too. And at that, all through college, that was like the main thing I loved to do. And so I was like, what? And then I was just like, that sounds so crazy. Like that just sounds crazy. What are you doing? Like, what kind of system is this? And now all of these things are coming together, and I'm realizing as we're talking that he just had this way about him, his sort of anarchic way of teaching or something.
Yeah.
Which also goes with his sort of anarchic way of doing music too, which isn't to say he didn't respect composition. It's, you know, and he really did. But then also the way he treated improvisation was just sort of like, you know, treating everything as, you know, anything that's happening right now is the most important thing.
I did a lot of random odd jobs for Richard. Like I would periodically go to storage units with him and move boxes around. I was always so amazed when I was doing these jobs with him. It's like he never threw out his students' compositions. So he had like boxes and boxes of reel-to-reels.
What?
Many, yeah. Yeah, it was really, really precious. I mean, and I was like, why don't you throw that crap out? I mean, these are like midterm composition projects from the 80s or whatever. And he's just like, I can't throw them out. I mean, they're real pieces of music. You know, I just that level of commitment to his students really stuck with me. You know, he really took his pedagogy seriously, even despite it being so understated. Yeah, and cared about his students too as people.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
It is sort of surprising in a way, actually.
Yeah.
But it's just sad that Richard's gone. But actually talking about him with you guys is making me feel sad.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of his sort of suggestions, and all of his ideas were always really compositional, actually, and really, you know, always about trying to get you out of this kind of like pattern that might, you know, that's sort of like this easy human tendency pattern, you know, that I think was like a big thing of trying to break these kinds of like muscle memory patterns in improvising, but then in composition to like break these kind of, get yourself out of these boxes.
My fondest memory of Richard, like sitting in the classroom, and he was, I asked him to critique one of my pieces, and like kind of like a little studio visit, and I played my piece for him, and halfway through the piece, the fire alarm went off, and he was just sitting there like, and I was like, Richard, that's the fire alarm. We should probably head out of here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then just like stood up, covered his ears, and I left. But it was, he enjoyed the sound, you know, whatever was kind of thrown like that.